Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Coming to you raw and uncut. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Okay, raw tonight. It was raw, all right. Um, like I said before, we have all these, PLEs, but there's nothing to show for them on the shows that should be leading up to the PLEs. Tonight's Raw was just like that. I mean, they made a match that wasn't even scheduled. They just threw it in, and that was the match with Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed, and it's called an Australian Street Fight. Make that make sense to me, you know? Okay, Raw started out with Roman Reigns coming out to do a promo, and before he even gets to get started, Paul Heyman comes out with Bronson Reed. Okay, Roman looks at them and says, "Are we gonna stare? Are you gonna stare at me all night? Or are you gonna say something?" Then Paul Heyman says, um, to Roman Reigns about breaking his heart. There was a about being this wise man and breaking his heart. And that he ruined the stage of whatever's going to be happening and stuff. I mean, it's just the same old kind of thing, you know. And Bronson Reed, when he starts talking about Alfred and Seeker, Roman's father and uncle, and how would they, feel on how Roman Reigns, you know, has been taking all these beatings and, was beat up and put out on a stretcher and stuff. I mean, it happens when you get jumped by three people or whatever the case may be, you know. And for the life of me, I don't even know why Roman Reigns is dealing with Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. His problem should be with Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins, because Paul Heyman is the one that screwed Roman Reigns, and he screwed CM Punk, and they're not even talking about none of that stuff. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, throughout all that, a match got set with Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed for a Australian street fight at Crown Jewel Saturday. Well, in the United States, it'll be Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. Okay, and then we get this backstage thing with Oscar, talking to Adam Pearce, and then she's setting up Kairi Sane to fight Io Sky, and I believe Oscar is the one that has the problem with Io, but she's putting Kairi in it, and then when Kairi comes out, she tells Kairi that she's gonna be having a match with Io. Kairi is like, look, she can bring back the family. She doesn't want to do the fight or anything like that, you know. And then Oscar slaps her, and then you gotta look at that, the look on her face, man, on Kairi's face and stuff after Oscar slaps her, and then tells Kairi that she better win the match. Wow. Okay. And then we get the match with Becky Lynch and Maxxine Dupree. And I'm gonna just say this: Maxxine Dupree is definitely, from the first time Becky Lynch has fought Maxxine Dupree, Becky Lynch, I mean, she just dropped her out, and just did everything to her, beat her to death. I don't think Maxxine got anything on that match, but this match right here, kind of, showed that Maxxine has been working, trying to improve her level as far as in the ring. She's still basically a jobber. I think she needs to go back down to NXT and build more, and then come back up to the main roster and stuff. I mean, it was good when she was with what was the name of the Google was right on the tip of my tongue, but I'll think about it because with Otis and Tasawa with Kurt Angle. Yeah, and stuff. It was something Academy. I can't remember. The Alpha Academy. Okay, that's what it was. You know, and she didn't get much action or anything like that. Every now and then you might see her in the ring. I know she did a couple of things with Natalie, as far as tag teaming together and stuff. But anyway, she did give Becky a pretty halfway decent match. There was a lot of missed spots and everything, but for the most part, it was an okay match. She did defeat Becky Lynch, but only by count out. But that was the stupidity of Becky Lynch. Okay, and then we got the OTC, talking to Jimmy backstage, and just Jimmy saying to Rowan about what Paul Heyman said about his uncle and father and stuff, and they were putting not his father, but the uncles and stuff, and then Jimmy's basically saying that he had Roman's back, and then Jay says that he has Roman's back and everything, kind of like put Jimmy out and stuff, and it was crazy because I think Jay is actually, I don't know, he's losing it. Looks like he might become heel. He's gonna turn on his brother, turn on the family. I don't know how they're gonna do this, you know, um, and stuff. But then Roman says, that he's good, that he doesn't need any help. And he looks at Jay and he says, especially from you, because we've talked about it and stuff, saying that Jay should stay focused um, on what he's doing, trying to become champion again and stuff. And then he tells him like who's at the top of the hour, going to do a promo or whatever the case may be. And it's CM Punk. So Jay leaves and stuff, and then Jimmy and Roman watch him go, and then Roman says to Jimmy that he knows and sees everything. Then says what the problem with him, what's the problem with Jay taking orders and advice from him? This stuff as far as Jay and Roman is concerned and stuff. And then we get the Bailey and Lyra Valkyria. Bailey's talking to Lyra, knowing that she's going into a match with Roxanne Perez. Um, and so they go out to the ring and stuff. Lyra goes to the ring, and then they have the match. The match was okay. It was pretty much back and forth. Then you got the interference with Michelle Rodriguez and stuff, and then Lyra, she kicks well, actually, after Lyra boots Bailey, because Bailey was telling Lyra to put Roxanne Perez in in her finishing move and stuff, the Nightwing and stuff, and then Michelle Rodriguez comes over and she kicks Bailey in the face. Lyra, she goes to the ropes and kicks Michelle in the head, kind of like a drop kick, and then Roxanne Perez comes through the ropes and then gives Bailey a DDT onto the floor and stuff. And so, the match was okay. And then Roxanne gets in the ring and then she does the pop rocks um, on Lyra and wins the match and stuff. And then they'd go to a film promo with some history between AJ Styles and John Cena, which was pretty decent. It kind of tells a little bit of something history of the two. Doesn't really say anything as far as a good storyline. And AJ Styles kind of said that after the match that he had later on in the night and stuff, and then you got Kathy Kelly with AJ Styles, and then as he's talking about, the match with John Cena at Crown Jewel this Saturday and stuff, then the Judgment Days comes out. They show up, and Dom is just talking his mess. Dom is telling him that he's not gonna that AJ is not gonna beat John Cena and stuff because he couldn't beat him, nor could Rusev beat him and stuff. For the title that for his Intercontinental title and stuff. And then Finn Balor says, he's been hearing that AJ's been trying to, and Dragon Lee's been trying to, figure a way out on how to get a tag title match with them. And basically AJ, is telling Adam Pearce basically that, hey, if he finds a third person to tag with him, that he would, him and Dragon Lee and the person he gets would shut, the Judgment Day down and stuff. And then Adam Pearce says, find a partner. So you're gonna get that match later on, in the segment. And then you see a little bit of Adam Pearce. Rusev arguing with Adam Pearce as CM Punk is motioning towards the ring and stuff. And then you got Penta coming, walking, and then AJ Styles and Dragon Lee stops him, and they're asking Penta, if they would, if he would, like to join them as far as the tag team against, the Judgment Day and stuff. And then he agrees, and he does it. And then as they were talking, then you got Lyra. Then you hear all this ruckus going on, and it's Lyra and Bailey backstage, and they're fighting, Michelle Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez, and so they're battling, and then they had to be broken up and stuff. And Adam Pearce is like, man, get them out of here and stuff like that. And Adam Pearce looks like he about ready to have a stroke dealing with them two and stuff. So, as the night goes, it's getting a little crazy and stuff. And then CM Punk, he hits the ring and stuff. And then as he hits the ring, you know, um, Jay hits the ring, and CM Punk is out trying to say he deserves to be champion and stuff. And then Jay comes out, and then he said he should be champion. Then LA Knight comes out and it says that he could be champion, and they're just arguing about who should be champion. To me, I'm thinking that Adam Pearce is about to come out and say, "Hey, y'all want to fight?" and everything, or argue, whatever. We're gonna have a triple threat match, to see who's number one contender. But that never happened, and everything. And then LA Knight says something to Jay that he should stay in his lane as far as tag team and everything, and that the tag team that he's in with his brother, they're no good anyway. Well, that brings Jimmy out, and then LA is trying to tell Jimmy that he has no beef with him or anything like that, but yet he just said that the tag team, the Usos sucked as a tag team, and oh man, and it just went on and 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 stuff. And then we have Io Sky telling Oscar that it's her fault, that it's Oscar's fault, that everything happened with, the Kabuki Warriors and her, Io Sky, is Oscar's fault, which it is, because Oscar's the one that's actually gotten jealous when, Io, was talking to Rhea. So, and then that's, how all that stuff got started. Now we got the match with Io Sky and Kairi Sane. The match was pretty good because they're both pretty good in the ring. But boy, there was one thing that happened. I thought that Kairi had killed doggone Io because when she Alabama slammed her and her neck and head hit the side of the ring, I thought Io was done. I mean, Io's gonna feel that. I mean, her adrenaline is flowing, so I'm sure Io's gonna feel that, throughout the night. Maybe hopefully by Saturday, Crown Jewel, she'll be fine and stuff. Where the match, will go on with her and Rhea against the Kabuki Warriors. Then you got Becky backstage flipping out on the loss to Maxxine Dupree, and she's blaming the referees and stuff like that. I mean, it's crazy. It was her fault. She did what she did. She stayed out in the ring. She should have known better. And she got counted out and she lost. That's on her. And then you got Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman talking, and Seth was saying the same thing about, he has to beat Cody and stuff. And Paul Heyman was saying that, he's going to win, telling, Seth Rollins that he will win, that he will beat, Cody Rhodes and stuff like that. And then, Seth is saying, what if he loses to Cody and stuff, you know? And then Paul is telling him that he won't lose to Cody, but he said, what if he does? And everything, Tell him the truth and stuff. And he said, well, if you lose the match, then you're going to lose, like, the locker room. You're going to lose faith of Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed and stuff, and then the vision, you know, because he is the leader of the vision, and he is supposed to bring everybody into the future, after this match if he wins Crown Jewel. And he's still, questioning himself about beating Cody Rhodes. And then Paul's like telling him, like, you're gonna throw away everything, And he's like, since WrestleMania, you know, um, if he loses to Cody Rhodes, I mean, he'll lose the whole Netflix era and stuff like that, because he said the whole Netflix was built around him, around Seth freaking Rollins, and he will become nothing more in history than a de facto wannabe secondary champion. So it kind of like said some words that were harsh, to Seth, but he needed to hear him and stuff. Um, so with that, you know, um, I don't know. This match, in Crown Jewel, I hope it was good. You kind of figure that if Seth is actually going against Cody and stuff, they kind of could have should have had something with them, kind of bringing it to the point, for everybody to want to go watch, you know, the PLE and stuff, but they didn't. You know, I mean, it was just so much talking, and not a lot of action and stuff. Me get again, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso in the back, you know, um, Jay saying why, he got hit by CM Punk and everything. And then Jimmy shows up, and they start going off on, each other and stuff like that. And then Jimmy, and Roman are sitting there, and Jimmy's saying, "Hey, Roman, I know you said that you can hear, see, and everything." Then he said that he can do the same thing, you know, and it's I don't know. It's just I don't know. None of this really makes sense, you know. Why is Jimmy involved in this? It's between Jay Uso, CM Punk, and LA Knight, you know. And I figured that pretty soon they're going to have a triple threat match and see who's number one contender, for the world title. Then we get the Penta, AJ Styles, and Dragon Lee against Dom, the Judgment Day, Dom, Finn Balor, and JD McDonough. The match was, it was okay. It was back and forth. Rusev comes out, you know, um, Dom sees him. Oh man! And then as Rusev is coming around, Penta mistakenly kicks Rusev, in the head, and he goes across the table and stuff like that. And Dom grabs his titles and stuff, and then he leaves the match. He runs off. He leaves. And then AJ Styles catches JD McDonough in the Styles Clash and hits it on him and gets the 1, 2, 3, and they win. Penta, AJ Styles, and Dragon Lee wins. And then AJ Styles gets on the table, saying that the match between him and John Cena, doesn't need a storyline because, everything is written, on itself and stuff, and that the match that they'll have at Crown Jewel is going to be a barn burner. So hopefully it's a good one because AJ Styles says it was going to be. But anyway, then we get the match with, the main event with Jimmy and Jey Uso against CM Punk and LA Knight. Um, the matches, it went on and on, back and forth. CM Punk hits Jay with the GTS. LA Knight tags in and steals the match, and he gets the pin over Jey Uso. Now, why are they pinning Jey Uso and not Jimmy? Because Jay, he's a former champion. Jimmy, he's just there. He has nothing to do with the other three and stuff. But anyway, that's the writing that they give, and that's how it ended. They're turning the Usos into jobbers and stuff, and it's just crazy, crazy, crazy what Triple H and the WWE is doing and stuff. But I'm not gonna go into all those details. I will have a prediction on Crown Jewel. Probably put the video out. Actually, we'll put the video out tomorrow and stuff. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching. God bless. Deuces, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.